Hello everyone, welcome to episode 4 of my Angel Server Home Lab series. In the last episode, I exposed my server to the internet using DDNS through Cloudflare and NPM proxy manager to direct different incoming traffic to the different services running on my server. I also set up Tailscale so that I can access my terminal and check my logs, make commands from anywhere in the world, but I'm still missing one thing. I can make commands on my terminal, but I can't make changes to my documentation that I have on GitHub from my MacBook. So in this episode, I'm going to be setting up SSH keys to improve security and to also not have to type my password every time I want to SSH into my server. And I'm also setting up Git sync so I can make commits, I can push to my server and then pull from my server the documentation so I can make changes and kind of exchange that information between my devices and make commits to my GitHub repo, either from my MacBook, from my PC, maybe a little bit of both. Now they kind of all work together through Git. So that's what I'm going to be setting up in this episode. So let's jump into Proxmox to get started. So I just went ahead and went to my VM in my Proxmox manager, and I went to the snapshots tab, and as you can see here, I've already made a snapshot called post hardening version 1. I have SSH keys active, password authentication is disabled, and I have Git sync configured to lab server and origin. And I just did this, so if I mess anything up in the future, I can always come back to this snapshot and everything will be good. To get to this point, I had to do two things off camera. I had to generate my keys on both my main PC and my MacBook, and I had to introduce them to my server so that my server knows which devices are approved to access. First, on both my MacBook and my PC, I used a modern encryption algorithm called Ed25519 to create a public and private key pair. The private key stays on my computer and never leaves, and the public key is the one that I give to my Ubuntu server so that it knows that I am approved to be accessing the server through SSH. I used a command called SSH copy ID to send those public keys over to the Angel server, which stored them in a special hidden directory on my Linux Ubuntu server. Now that the handshake between my personal devices and my server is established, I'm going to show you where those files actually live on the server. I ended up learning off camera that all configuration files are hidden in Linux by default, so the normal ls home directory command is not going to show my SSH directory. I have to do this ls-la command. Then we're going to see this .ssh directory in here. This is where all of my authorized keys are. That is going to tell Linux these keys are allowed to access the server. So I'm just going to open this up to show you guys that I have my keys for my MacBook and my PC already inside of there. Now that my PC knows that my MacBook and my Windows PC are the only devices on the allowed guest list, it's time to finally lock the server all the way down and disable passwords so that if a hacker is trying a bunch of random passwords on my server, they can't eventually guess what it is because passwords don't even work. You have to have my SSH key approved in the file to even be able to get into my server to begin with. So off camera, I went into the SSH configuration file at /etc/ssh/sshd_config, and I changed one specific line, password authentication, from yes to no. So now no password authentication. Passwords can no longer be used to access my server. Now I could open up that entire configuration file and show you the password authentication line, but instead of doing that, I'm going to use a tool called grep. So we can go to the exact line in my SSH configuration file that says password authentication, and I can show you guys that it no longer says yes and that I've changed it to no. Now that my server is locked down through those SSH keys and disabling password authentication, I still want to be able to edit my documentation from anywhere. If you read my GitHub, you saw that I put this lab is documentation first, which is true. I'm trying to document literally everything I do in the lab, which is what I'm doing right now. So I need to be able to edit that documentation from anywhere if I'm making changes in my terminal connected through Tailscale. I also want to be able to fix the documentation. But moving files back and forth through email or USB drive or whatever method is incredibly tedious and annoying. So I'm setting up a Git sync so that this all works seamlessly together through Git commands in the command line on my PCs. I'm using kind of a double push strategy here. My PC and my MacBook are both talking to a lab-server remote on my Ubuntu server. So I can push changes to that lab server, and then I can pull on my PC and keep editing before I actually push to the public GitHub repo. So I can make changes seamlessly between my devices, which I'm going to be showing you here in just a minute. So to show you how this works in live action, I've cut over to my MacBook here. You can see I've got my Obsidian Vault pulled up. This is where I write and store all of the documentation for this lab. I just went ahead and added a test note here, git sync verification, and we're going to push that to my lab server repo, and then we're going to pull it on my main PC so you guys can see how these changes work. The very first command, now that I've changed directories here on my MacBook to the Obsidian Vault, is going to be git add dot. This is just staging all of the files to be sent, to be pushed to my lab server repo. The dot at the end just tells it is a wildcard, which is something I learned about in the last episode, which just tells GitHub that, or not GitHub, Git, that any and every change added to the vault needs to be pushed. Now, in the same way in the beginning of the video where we made a snapshot in Proxmox that we can always come back to if something goes wrong, we also do this git commit command so that the changes that we just staged to the add command can actually be saved, and we can always come back to these commits if something goes wrong in the future. And now that we've staged them and committed the changes to our notes, the next step is going to be to actually push the changes to my lab server repo so that I can access these changes on my main PC. So now back on my main Windows PC here, the only command I need to do to get these changes to appear is git pull lab-server main, and you're going to see these changes here. I'll blow it up so you can see them a little better. 2 changes were made. We can go to my Obsidian Vault, and there it is. That's the change that I added on my MacBook, now on my PC. Pretty cool, pretty cool. Now, I showed you how I can seamlessly make changes between my devices, but I didn't show you how I can actually update my public GitHub repo on github.com, link in channel description. And all I have to do that is push it to origin main. So I'm just going to run that command here, and we're going to open up our GitHub repo, and the changes should be there right away. Right away. There they are. Wow. This is so useful, so easy, so simple. I love it. And that's going to be it for episode 4, guys. I know this one wasn't as exciting as the last one. It's going to be kind of hard to beat that last episode where I went out into the park. But the next episode should be a lot more exciting for you because I'm going to be mounting my 500 gigabyte hard drive that came with the Optiplex into Proxmox and then allowing the VM to see it so that I can store my entire iCloud Photos library on that drive and access it through a cool interface called Image. So look forward to that in the next episode. Hopefully I said Image right. I think that's how you say it. And also I want to apologize for the camera going in and out like that. It just did it. I have a $20 used Logitech webcam that I plan on replacing soon. So maybe in the next episode I'll have a better camera. Look forward to that. And see ya. Thanks for watching.